Greetings, intrepid explorers of the extraordinary and uncharted realms of existence. I'm your host, CJ, and welcome to Supernormalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break through boundaries, and endeavor to make the supernatural the new normal. My mission here at Supernormalized is to dispel the shroud of mystery, cloaking the so-called supernatural, inviting you to open your minds, expand your consciousness, and embrace the fascinating wonders of our universe that often remain unexplored. Are you a torchbearer of unusual knowledge and have a unique story that you want to share with the world? I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly at supernormalized@proton.me and become part of my mission to normalize the supernatural. Join us today in this sacred space, where we're into the mystical, guided by the likes of visionaries such as our guest today, the enlightening Indra Rinzler. Through his wisdom and experiences, we delve into an understanding of ourselves, our life's journey, and our profound relationship with Mother Gaia. Expect a whirlwind of thought-provoking subjects, reflective of the depth and breadth of Indra's spiritual insight. And who, you might ask, is this luminary leading us through these metaphysical frontiers? For half a century, Indra Rinzler has walked the path of spirituality with a particular affinity for Vedic Astrology. Since 1999, he has delved deeply into the Enneagram of Personality, using his nuanced framework in live readings to help others awaken to their truest selves. This charismatic and authentically fascinating man is no stranger to the road less traveled. With over 2 decades of global exploration under his belt, he has offered sessions and classes across the United States and Asia, touching the lives of countless individuals along the way. Prepare to be beguiled, my friends, with the enthralling tales and enlightening teachings of Indra Rinzler as we journey together into the realm of spiritual wisdom and self-discovery. Prepare for a journey into the soul. Lastly, before we start the show, if you enjoy journeying with me, the best way to support Supernormalized is to help me reach out to more curious minds like yours. So, dear listener, I personally invite you to fire up your favorite podcast app, hit up that 5-star rating, and let the algorithms know that this is a conversation worth sharing. Now, sit back, tune in, and join me as we journey together into the extraordinary right here on Supernormalized. Hello, Indra. Good to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really interested to meet this guest you're going to have today.
I looked at your biography and wrote that up a little bit, and then I put it through the AI, and it made it sound even better than I could write. So I was like, well, I'll go with that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Send me a copy of it if you
I will.
Yeah.
So Indra, you've been doing this for quite a while. Can you actually give us a framework of what you do for people? I mean, that it sounds extremely fascinating.
So the truth is I don't really do anything for people. It's them doing it for themselves,
Okay,
and
I should
then
have framed that better.
and it's existence doing it. It's not
Yeah.
me.
Okay. So basically, you give them the roadmap and say, "This is what's happening," and they go, "Yeah, great."
Well, yeah, my approach has become science and intuition.
Yeah.
And so it has a mathematical basis. It's sacred geometry, uh, uh, mathematics, these shamanism, esoteric, all of these, the mystical, they all have the add to our nature.
Yeah.
And by using the science, the factual basis to help to explain the physical plane. What I'm doing, the approach is to help people to understand their physical plane reality in order
Yeah.
for them to be able to get beyond that physical plane reality. So
Yeah.
by using astrology, by using Enneagram, Enneagram shows us our core triggers. There are
Right.
9 stories. One of the stories is our core story, and it shows us our core triggers. Astrology shows us our strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
And the hope is that when we can see clearly what is going on, then that of its own starts the healing. The healing being letting go of positionalities that don't serve our higher need,
Right. So it
our
stops.
higher self.
So it stops knee-jerk reactions to things, and also ineffectual behaviors and patterns that may not even be our own, that we've actually adopted to survive in life, because we
They
don't
can't.
actually enter know we don't actually know ourselves that well.
Yeah, they actually, some of them aren't even ours, and they're strategies,
Yeah.
and they're natural, and they're unnatural, and so getting them from the natural to being unnatural is what, and it seems to me that's what we're doing here. At
Yes.
least that's what I've been doing here for 50 years.
Yeah. Right. Excellent.
More
Excellent. So,
than 50 years.
so what drew you to this path? I mean, what was it? What was life like as Indra before this happened, and what made you go, "Oh my God, this is it"?
Well, it wasn't Indra. It was the unindra. What happened was is that my parents both died of natural causes right after college. My mother within a week of my graduating college, 9 days after graduating college, and my father 2 years later.
Wow.
And
Awful.
so I was left with the opportunity to explore the world. And when they died, they part of that was around giving me freedom. And I'm not saying egotistically that there was a story always going on about protecting me from, I don't know what it was, but previous generations. But you don't have to know my family story, because I'm not even sure what the story is.
Yeah.
But everybody's got their own story and their own version of being protected from the, I like to say, the we keep inheriting all these the crazy conditioned ideas, and they're passed on from generation to generation. And so, for whatever reason, my parents had a role, because it was so difficult for them. Whatever that looks like, I have no idea.
Mm.
I mean, I can tell you some stories, but I still don't really know. And so I was left as an orphan, free to not have to buy into any conditionings, free without any having to go back home, having to look a certain way, having to perform, having able to come into more authenticity, being
Wow.
encouraged by the reality is that I was only my own BS. And so at 24, I got to a place. I got a menial job. I had dropped out of graduate school, deciding that while I may want to do business, I certainly don't want to do corporate business. I dropped out of. I was in the number two MBA program, Masters of Business in the U.S. at the time, and I had a menial job. I moved to California. I had a menial job, and I said, "What am I doing? I don't really need to do this. This isn't what I need to do, and I don't even know anything about how to do this job."
Yeah.
And so I just started and I don't know what the words I used back then were, but basically working on myself. That the idea of finding happiness, or finding myself, or finding what was true, whatever that, whatever, however I said it then. I don't remember how I said it, but that became the process. And then we started going to the metaphysical bookstore, which was kind of a new concept, and started reading without any goal, without any um, plan, knowing
Mm.
nothing about it, but being totally open to whatever was. And my life started changing. Became a vegetarian, and got into community, and started following the path.
Excellent. So way back then, was there anything that fired your light straight up when you were, in your first steps of freedom? Is there something that grabbed you and said, "This is the way"?
Well, yeah, the autobiography of a yogi.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that, because that must have been a big
That's
trigger.
Yeah, you are familiar with it? It's a
No,
book.
no. In fact, I'd
Okay,
like to know
so
more.
by the way, and I'll tell you about this in just a second, but I wanted to say,
Yeah,
if I may, that in theme with this super normal,
yeah,
that one of the key driving forces at the time, I remember thinking, was that once I walked into a room and I could feel more energy than was in the room. I could feel more things happening. It was whether it was deja vu or depth of connection. As soon as I was open to the idea that there's more here than I can see, then my being told me that anything was possible.
You literally tuned in.
Yeah, well, I tuned in, and in that tuning in, I suppose tuning in. I never thought of it that way, but in that tuning in, I realized that anything was possible. So
Yeah.
I ended up reading this book. This Indian master, Paramahansa Yogananda. He was the first Indian master to live in the West. He came to the U.S. in 1920. He had a an incredible lineage of people. At the top of the lineage was the deathless Babaji, and he wrote a book. He wrote an autobiography in 1946 called The Autobiography of a Yogi that had countless stories of India, countless stories of saints, and was a primer on the spiritual path by telling his story and telling what he experienced and who he met and who his lineage was. And it's a, was and still is one of the greatest spiritual books, like with Ram Dass Be Here Now, is was the guiding force for generations of
Mm, mm.
seekers.
Seekers. Yeah. Did so this was happening around about the 60s, is that correct?
Well, this was now in the early 70s.
Early 70s. Okay. So you actually um grew up and lived through the 60s in
50s and 60s,
50s and
absolutely.
60s. You were right there at the
I
genesis
was
of a lot of
in
this.
I was a senior in high school when Kennedy was killed.
Whoa. Okay.
So it all kind of started there. And then I remember, I don't know if you want to go into this, but I remember looking years ago, but many years later, I found my high school, no, my college yearbooks online. I
Mm,
think I was going to go back there, and I kind of was exploring what was available. So in 1965, everybody was straight road, and everybody had their ties and jackets on.
yeah.
In 1966, there were two or three people whose ties were crooked and maybe were standing up, and hair was a little undone. And by 1967, there was no order at all.
Yeah.
That's the way it happened.
Yeah. 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 That's excellent. So you're inspired by this yogi that has come to from the east to the west, and that's pretty much the trigger for all of your path there. And
Yeah, they're still guiding me. Their thing, the Yogananda's guru Yuteshwar was an astrologer.
brilliant,
Not only
brilliant.
was he a master, an enlightened master, but he was an astrologer and a philosopher. And
Mhm.
so he's been guiding me the whole time.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I come to find out. That's why it's really easy to say I don't do anything, because it's all the power, and it isn't my power.
Yeah, just connecting with the infinite and guiding the information through.
Yeah,
Excellent.
basically.
Yeah, yeah. So you've started this connection with the yogi through his writings, and I'm guessing you picked up meditation. And when did you pick up astrology, and how was that for you, and why was that for you? Is that a guided thing via the yogi as well?
Well, probably. Actually, the astrology was starting at the same time. I can't say which one was first. I mean,
Yeah.
probably I read an astrology book before I started reading Yoga, Autobiography of a Yogi. But if it's 6 months or 3 months or 2 weeks, I don't remember. But I started with astrology back then, and I studied it very deeply until about 75.
Mm.
And I hit a wall, and it dropped away for 20 years, and I
Oh,
worked on other things. And it's kind of a theme. Sometimes I like to say, well, I had some friends who were told that the quickest way to write the book is to stop writing.
interesting.
And so for me, I had to deepen
Mm.
in order to come back to astrology because I just didn't feel that it was deep, and I didn't really that it was that books and my understanding of it was as deep as I wanted it to be, even though I had absolutely no idea where I was going to go with it or what I would do with it. And of course,
Yeah.
back then I was starting to do readings. We were making you cast the chart by hand back then. You didn't use computers because we didn't have any,
Yeah.
but you used to use ephemeris books. Yeah, it hit a wall and it dropped away for 20 years. And when it
Mm.
came back, it was slow. And then it kind of took over as a way. Eventually, it took over as I continued to mature. That really what only became apparent in the last 10 or 12 years.
Right.
That's
Right.
how long.
Mm. Mm.
And I don't have a problem with that. And people there can say the because I was young once, boy, that's a long way to wait. What a waste. And it's not the way I feel that everything leads one thing leads to another, and that the it's like our kids. People used to say, "Were your kids planned?" And I'd say yes, but not by us.
Yeah. I think that's probably the story that most parents would be able to say if they're really tuned into that.
so this wasn't my plan. And the thing is that sure, I would love to have been a world famous because now I'm starting to read people like Stephen Forrest and David uh, uh, Cochrane, who started approximately the same time I did, but they stuck with it and they really got into it. And I had that same fire, but my thing was to let it go for 20 years in order to grow in other ways. And so what's the better path? I have no idea and don't really care.
Mm.
There is no better path. It's just the path.
It's
And
whatever
and
works,
I
works.
do believe if you ask why, I just think it's just I had a mathematical frequency, and for whatever reason, I've been gifted with this way of understanding life, and that's my blessing. And I'm very happy. I don't care really why about anything anymore
Mm.
that
Mm.
has disappeared.
So the macro point of that would say that you had a self-awareness that is, you would say, also from beyond, from yourself. So you could step back from everything and allow it just to grow within you.
Well, again, I'm not sure that it's myself. It's that I'm a good receiver, that I'm open enough to be able to
Ah,
tune into what's always there.
yeah.
It's not about the finally it's not about finally it's there. It's
Mm.
that finally you hear it. And so yeah, that I have I suppose an ability to well, I'm a natural enthusiast, and so if I get an idea, then I go for it, and it never occurs to me pro and con. If I got the idea, that was enough. And does that get you into trouble? Well, yeah, it could get you into trouble sometimes,
Mm.
but it's also, that it's so spontaneous and enthusiastic, and most of the time, all the time, in the end, it works out.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So you do astrology for self-awareness. So, can you explain that?
Yes, I'm a Vedic astrologer. I use the astrology of India. The main it's the astrology isn't so much different from Western tropical astrology that most people are familiar with. The main difference is we cast the chart slightly differently. It's 24 degrees earlier because it's where the planets actually are in sidereal time, not in the tropical time, which is based on the Aries zero, the seasons, March 21st every year.
Right.
Astrology for self-awareness is a phrase. Well, how it works is that I'm really interested in the core position of the planets. I'm not interested in aspects. I'm not interested in outer planets. I'm not interested in what generational is happening. I'm interested in your, based on your chart, what are your guttural reactions? And what they're going to be are the weakest planets that you have. They're going to be cuspy planets. They're going to be retrograde planets. They're going to be planets that are in signs that are not particularly happy. And by looking at that based on sidereal time, not tropical time, certain situations will come up that the sun moves from well placed to cuspy, and all of a sudden we see that there's an insecurity around self. And so by honing in on these planetary positions that are particularly weak, where the strong planets are means that we can access the energy of that planet really easily, and weak planet means that we have trouble accessing that energy of that planet. And so that's where our compulsions and our obsessions come in.
Right. Right. And so when you do a session like this, do you cover, like, this sounds like natal astrology in some way, what you're describing now?
Well, I do. This is natal astrology. I do some other kinds of astrology,
Yes.
but basically, it really starts with the imprint of your personality. It's not who you are; it's who you think you are. That you have to come into this identity in order to be able to let it go.
Right. Right. Right.
You
Right.
can't
Right.
let it go by ignoring it. That doesn't work. Well, let
Right.
me say it works. It works as well as it does until you get to a place where it doesn't work anymore. Usually the 40s, if not before,
Right.
and at that point, then you're ready to look at it and let it go. And so, what I'm doing is just focusing on the core issues, because that's where the compulsions and the obsessions come from. That's where the blocks come from. It's where the anger and frustration and pain come from, and fear.
Mm, mm,
And the hope is, by realizing those, by communicating what they are in a totally non-judgmental way, then people can become more present to themselves and their story.
So this actually helps with people gaining their goals in life because they step
Yes,
out of the
and
way.
and I and I think it's time for the four steps, the four doorways to conscious living.
Oh,
The
okay. Yeah.
four the
Let's go
four
through that.
doorways to conscious living. And so I say that at the end of it's like at the end of the reading, people look at me and say, Indra, this is great stuff. Now what do I do with it? And so because of that, I got given these four doorways to conscious living. The first doorway is to learn to observe. You need to watch your own behavior. You need to watch your own thinking. You need to watch your reaction to other people's thinking and behavior. You need to get out of the movie of your life into the audience and start observing yourself with a sense of objectivity of what's going on. Then the second doorway is to let go and release what doesn't serve you. Just a second. Letting go involves being aware of a feeling, letting it come up, staying with it, and letting it run its course without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. It
Mm,
means simply to let the feeling be there and to focus on letting out the energy behind it. When letting go, ignore all thoughts. And I do recommend this book called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And so, this second step, letting go and releasing what doesn't serve you, understanding that there may be things that still serve you. They may not serve you, in a year or two. Some of your suffering, some of your pains, they may serve you right now. Some of your bad habits may serve, but when they don't serve, then it's time to let them go. The third doorway is to love yourself, and the fourth is to live in the moment. So when you're living in the moment, then you're loving yourself. They're synonymous at that level. How do we love ourselves? Is by letting go and releasing what doesn't serve us. How do we know what to let go and release? We just learn to observe.
Mm, mm. Okay, okay. So this is basically a spiritual healing journey for people that you read for. They get to see themselves or what they're masquerading as, and accepting and rejecting parts of that for personal growth.
Yes, and people come with questions, and I don't really answer the questions. I don't really make predictions, but what
Yeah.
I do is I can give you enough information so that you can answer the question.
Okay, okay. So transits are a bit different when you do it. So you go through like what, like I said before, maybe like a roadmap of where you are, where you've been, and where you're possibly
Yeah,
going to.
yeah, we call it a roadmap. We can call it an X-ray. You know that
X-ray,
it
nice.
looks at the inside. It looks the different modalities look at the inside in order for you to be able to. Another image or metaphor I use is putting puzzle parts together.
Okay.
Most I'm going to give you a few puzzle parts you haven't seen before, but most of the puzzle parts people are aware of. But I put them together in a way that the teachings put them together. It's not me. The teachings put them together in a way that they start connecting, and in that connection, then people level up. It's a transcendental experience. The reading, and why is that? Is because they're taken to another level.
Yeah, right. Right. So it's a bit of releasing for them as well in that case.
That's in the other level. That's where they get the clarity.
Yes.
And I say, like in India, where we do it in the room, I say you'll be really clear until you walk over the threshold of the door,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it starts dissipating, and then you're back on your own, and then you have to get the work then becomes to get back there on your own.
Right, right. So this of course is a spiritual journey that people are all taking. Yet with these methods that you present, it allows for a more conscious understanding of it and where you are going.
That yeah, that Yeah, I'll vote for that. The conscious understanding is the solution. That's it's not the it's not more classes. It's not more walks. It certainly isn't more lovers. It's whatever you need for more conscious understanding. That's what you're looking for. Then everything else will come.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
I call it the approach is that I'm not offering a better story. The better
Mm,
story is no story. And the bigger TV, the better house, the better relationships, those will come.
yeah.
When it's their time, those will come. But I want to what I'm offering, what I'm understanding from myself is to get to offer this clarity, and then in that clarity, then it becomes magnetic for whatever the person is has a destiny and a karma for.
I like that. It
It's
sounds
it's
almost.
it's a freedom.
It is a freedom. Yeah, it sounds like it's almost like a Zen space. Just sitting in the all potential.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. That things come to you.
yeah, yeah. Excellent. So I've got some questions that you've said that you're available for, and I was going to ask you.
Whew, okay.
So you've
Good.
been.
If they're my questions, I can blame myself.
Yes. Okay. So as a part of your journey, you went to India and had some spiritual journeys yourself, which are all a part of what became you as Indra now. Um, what happened? What is a spiritual journey for you in India, and what was that like? What happened for you in India?
Well, um, I went in 84, 86 the first
86.
time.
Okay.
86 the first time on pilgrimage with my uh, spiritual brothers and sisters. And it was a remembrance. It wasn't a new experience, it was a remembrance. And I was just taken away. The spiritual experiences that I've had in India, what they are is Well, you can't really put it into words, and there's so many different experiences. But I will say that what happened became my lifestyle, and that they are not limited to India,
Mm.
because Ethiopia and Mongolia were just as dynamic spiritually as
Ah,
India.
okay.
And they can happen in the US where I live, that they become a lifestyle, that the idea of it is to bring it back to your normal lifestyle, that I don't know, I'm coming up with the phrase that you expect a miracle, but it's the idea that divinity and guidance are always with you, and that you are never separate, and that each moment is full and complete. And I would say, if you want me to get into specific experiences in India, I can. But the general experience is to live at such a high vibration, even with all of the craziness there, the order and the chaos.
Yes.
I remember one time, the first year I was there on my own. I was from 98 until COVID. I was in Asia and India every year but one. And I remember the first year, I remember we were traveling in a car. A few of us had just met. The bus wasn't going to travel India. The
Right.
bus was canceled. And so five of us or four of us grabbed a taxi to go to the place that the bus was going to go. And we stopped to get food along the way. I forget how long it was, but it was enough, 4 or 5 hour drive to get some food. And I remember finishing my food, and I had the packaging in my hand, and the young Indian next to me, and I was just holding it, and the young Indian grabbed it from my hand and threw it out the window to let me know that you don't have to hold on to it, and you could throw it outside and it's okay. So the thing is that India, in the craziness of the beggars and the poverty and the self maiming and all the craziness that is India, the burning ghats, that in each moment you living at such a high vibration, that you get to experience an experience of freedom that the first time you're there, perhaps you've never felt before, at least not consciously. And then that becomes your second nature, and as it takes over, and you don't really know another way to live.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent. Okay. So that informed your life and changed you, and is an ongoing point of change for you, of course.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it'll ever stop,
Yeah. Now,
even at the highest levels.
yeah, I think it's inevitable. Mm. Okay, so what is your spiritual healing journey, and um, how how were you led to study and share astrology and the Enneagram of Personality in relation to that?
So, what is a spiritual healing journey? What does that mean?
Well, that's what you've written here as a question. So
Okay.
it's your question.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling I would have this situation. My spiritual healing journey. Well, I would have to say that the spiritual healing journey was all of the opinions and all of the positions that didn't really serve my higher self.
Mm.
They have value when you're young, because we are defenseless, and we are insecure, and we are egotistical, and we are self-centered and needy and jealous and greedy and gluttonous and all of these other things, because they serve us at the time. But as we
Yes.
drop them, as we come into, uh, as we age, as we get older, this spiralness of coming around the time of your place of your sun, the solar return, they call it.
Yeah.
It has some magic into it, is because we do seem to eventually get wiser. And in that in that wisdom is the opportunity to let go of positions and ideas that don't serve us. And so I suppose that was my healing journey. The Enneagram was very important. We like to say that I had a loving wife of 25 years, but we never understood each other. And as we were separating and we got the Enneagram, we finally understood each other.
Oh,
But it wasn't, we didn't need to understand each other to love each other. And so
ah,
the
yes.
Enneagram became a tool to really understand myself and other people. Because when we understand the story that's running, we have a lot more compassion and a lot more understanding for people.
Yes. Yes, of course. Yeah. Right. Okay. So you've also written here that you'll be open to talking about the wheel of totality.
Okay, yeah, very happy to talk about that.
Yeah.
So the wheel of totality is in astrology, in an astrology reading. 98% of the reading is talking about planets. Is talking about houses, the planets that are in houses, but
Yes.
the empty houses. I didn't say that very clearly, but it's we're talking about the houses. We're talking about the planets that are in the houses that have planets in them, but hardly any of the reading discusses the houses that have no planets in them.
Well, I'm very interested in knowing more about that because I've got a lot of houses myself with nothing in them. So how
Okay,
does
so
that
what they
play?
so how that plays is, it's my opinion. Well, how mundane astrology has come up with it is they look to the ruler of the of that house,
Right. Yeah.
and that is a nice attempt at a scapegoat. But I like to say that if your doctor, if you're having an operation and your doctor is on Skype and your surgeon is on Skype, are you happy with that operation?
Right.
And
So
so they're saying, oh, well, it's the ruler that's 4 or 5 houses away. That's where you look to for that house. And I say, bunk. I say,
oh,
it's a great idea, but that doesn't, to me, hold any weight. Each house
okay.
contains awareness. And if you, I mean, whether you have a planet there or not, they all contain awareness.
Right.
They're houses, and they're 1/12. Theoretically, they're 1/12 of the totality of what we understand, at least on some level. And depending on how deep you make the chart and your analysis, you can maybe get to all levels. But the idea being that if you don't have a planet there, then that awareness of that house, those energies of those house, they won't play out in your life. But you also don't have the skills for the deeper teaching that's in that house. And so the wheel of totality became a way to help people to see their blind spots or places of ignorance that they don't start working on until they're 50.
Okay. I'm definitely
And
gonna have to have a reading with
so
you.
okay, and so the idea being that we don't look at those before we're 50, because we're working on developing our ego and identity.
Yeah. Right.
And so like I like to say, if you're 20 and I say open your heart, you're going to say my heart is open. But if I say you're 50 and I say open your heart, you're going to say you're the third person that told me that this week. Tell me more. So
Mm,
so we don't do that at 20, and
yeah.
that's okay. But the thing is that the Wheel of Totality is an incredible deep reading. I am so blown away every time I give one. They're not. It happens to be one of the readings that's not particularly long, but
Right.
long to do, but it's really deep. And so the idea is here that you get at the basic skills and the basic awarenesses that you're not attuned to. And so,
Mm.
can you give me one of the houses that you have that is empty? Give me
Oh,
the number by any
let,
chance.
let me just pull up my chart here on our tablet. One sec. I expect you to ask this. So my 10th house.
Okay.
It's Aquarius.
Okay. So now understanding that I'm doing Vedic astrology and it may shift,
Yes.
but let's just take let's just take the 10th house. Okay. The 10th house The awareness of the 10th house is love. That's the action in the world, is love.
Yes.
That in mundane astrology, it's about career. And so as
Oh.
a empty 10th house means that you're not focused on your career. It doesn't mean you won't have a career, but it's not something that you can feel it like a blind spot. If you have a very career-oriented parents,
Mm,
then you're gonna feel a little bit like the black sheep here because it ain't important to you.
mm,
But somehow, you've come to this place. But now in the wheel of totality, it's about love. Love starts as loving our team and loving our doll and loving our sweatshirt when we're little kids. and
yes.
and in 20s and 30s, love is mostly about satisfying needs, because if you don't do what I want, then I don't love you. It's very conditional, and it's really sticky, and it's not
Yeah,
really
right.
about love. But love becomes an attitude. It's a way of living. It's a way of being. It's just it doesn't need an object. It's that you have an attitude towards your life, that you wake up the morning and you're loving, and it doesn't need to know why or with what or whatever. It's just a way to be. And so when you don't have a planet there, this ability to be able to love on this deepest of levels, instinctually, I'm going to call it instinctually,
Yeah.
um, it's something that you have to work at.
Yeah, right. Right. Because I know for myself, I love, I've often said I love everyone, and also I have a connection to everything. And for me, that seems to be the normal way. I don't seem to have a focused love per se, except for my wife, of course, and friendships and things like this. And but love in life for me is more, I don't know, cosmic. I don't know what to say when I talk about that. It's just everything. I love everything.
Well, as I say, it's a little dangerous because you're giving me your tropical chart. And do you have a planet in your 11th house?
11th, I have uh, my North Node.
Okay, so that could move into your 10th house, and then that wouldn't be an issue of what you don't have.
Oh,
But the idea being that, because you sound to me like you have a planet there, that the people that don't have a planet there, they have a barrier to their loving. That it's not that they
ah,
don't That's not that they don't love their wife, but and their family, but they have a barrier. They keep themselves a little separate. There is a connection. The eighth house is about separation, and so you may have a planet in your eighth house, which means that you don't feel separation. You always feel connected. But that isn't the same as love. Love is a little bit more. It's a higher vibration, and it's a giving. It's a feeling of connection. And what you described sounds a bit like that to me. I'm just saying it again in my own way.
mm,
That there is. It's not that you realize that there's a deeper level. It's the people who hold back their love, that have difficulty loving and keeping a safe barrier between them and other people. That's the empty 10th house.
yeah, right. Well, I definitely am not empty, obviously. By that definition, that makes more sense.
Let, let
Okay,
me let me give you one more, and I'm not going to ask you whether you have it or not. But another
okay,
one that's kind of fun is the second house, and this we call duality, the second house. And
okay.
so the people that have a planet there have the ability to live in gray. The people that don't have a planet there tend to live in black and white. They live in duality. That they get judgmental. That either you love me or you don't, or either the light's on or it isn't. And I like to say that you can be hungry but not meal hungry. You can be tired but not sleepy tired. That you can love somebody but not like what they do. That's gray. People that don't have a planet there tend to live in black and white, and they get a little bit more rigid in that when they can't see it, then they say, well, it doesn't exist, because they're looking at things in black and white, that it's on or an off. There's no middle ground.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, okay. So, with all these methods and this understanding and this life that you've lived, you're offering people an understanding of where they're going, but you've pointed out that they should watch out for the pitfalls of better stories. What does that mean?
So the pitfall of better stories is that Well, I mean, if you want the better story, that's not what I offer. But the thing with the better story is that there's no end to it. That what does it? I remember, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago, kind of getting really frustrated that everything ended, and I used sort of sexuality. I mean, we're never satisfied. Whether you're satisfied for an hour or a day or a week or a year. I mean, it's always another time, and so we have to keep eating, and that whatever we want, it never seems to be enough. And so the question became, what satisfies, what creates an end, what is an end in itself, what ends that those limitations. And the better story will never end. There's no way to get out of the better story, that you keep wanting to have a better story, and it becomes the people who have all the money but not happy,
Yes.
or the people who, and then you see in India, you see the people that have nothing that seem very happy. So you see that contrast, and so the pitfall of the better story is that it never ends.
Mm. So what would,
and
okay,
and sorry,
that's all right.
and it's all ego. It's not the higher self speaking. It's all trying to satisfy the ego. The higher self doesn't care.
So then in that case, I should ask you then, how do people find happiness? How do you find happiness?
You find happiness by, like everything, is by taking out everything that isn't happiness.
Okay.
There's the old Indian story that the sculptor sculpts this incredible elephant, and they say, well, how could you sculpt such an incredible elephant? And he said, well, I just took away everything that wasn't the elephant, and there you find happiness.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay,
You're
so
already there. We're already enlightened. It's just we got to increase the percentage.
I've been saying that to people for years.
It's just it's a low percentage, but
Yeah.
it's not that we don't have enlightenment. We have moments of bliss, when you get your children are born, and the happiness on your marriage day, and all the moments that you have in life. You have moments of bliss. It's just not very long, and they're not connected.
Mm. I would actually say they are connected, but they don't have the same intensity. And but if you let go of all of that too and step back and just live in the moment, then everything is that intense all the time.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, cool. Okay. So everyone in our general life right now is probably wondering what's going on in the world, and I'm sure that you have a take on it as well, being so tuned in. I'd be very interested to know what you think of where we're going, and does the astrology say anything that you'd like to share?
Well, that isn't the kind of astrology that I do. I don't really care about any of that,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm not so much interested in the world either. That
It's a very
I
Zen
was
take.
over. I was over in. I'm sorry. Say that again.
That sounds like a very Zen take.
Yeah. Well, I was over in Thailand when North Korea was all blossomed up about 4 or 5 years ago, and
Yeah.
I remember really clearly feeling that if they're going to blow up the world, that's fine with me. I don't want to lose my sense of peace over it. I don't want to lose my connection to peace because of it. If it's going to happen,
Yeah.
fine. But
Okay.
I am not going to buy into it. What the world is happening, what's happening in the world is what's needing to happen in the world. There are a lot of conflicting forces. There are a lot of uh, I'm amazed on how strongly uh, opposite political opinions feel about their own opinion.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I agree with any of them, but
Yeah.
the
I'm
fact
there too.
is,
It's like I don't agree with it.
but the fact is that they're both really think that it's the way, and I'm really kind of amazed by that. And so I've kind of come to feel that it's the divine show. It's really not my show, and like I don't have so much time left, and so I'm not really so concerned about that. I'm not really
Yeah.
concerned that everything seems to right itself, that we don't seem to ever. We may get to that, what do they call that, clock ticking, the 11:59 hour. We
Yeah,
may
that's
get
right. Yeah,
there,
minutes to midnight.
and
Yeah.
and if we do, we do. But
Yeah.
the thing is, it doesn't seem to ever happen. And I've been waiting for the I bought gold in 1973, and I'm still waiting for the crash, and I'm not saying it won't happen, and I'm not getting what do you call it, arrogant about it. I'm just saying that at this point, my wife is my new wife has gotten into it a bit, and she says so and so. I say, yeah, they said that 50 years ago. I heard all that already. And so I just don't really care. It
Would
just doesn't really that important to me.
would you say that sometimes maybe us it's a human thing to be addicted to apocalypse?
Well, I think the addiction is that we're addicted to everything, and I think apocalypse is just part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'm addicted to apocalypse. But there is a sense that there is a human sense of wondering what's out there, of
Yeah.
wondering about the future, of where'd we come from, where are we
Mm.
going. Those things do kind of pop up in their kind of a nature. I read a few years ago. I read about that the sense of grief
Yes.
has comes in 15 or 20-minute waves.
They can put a time on it.
Yeah, that the sense of grief, that it comes in waves, and it will come for 15 or 20 minutes, and then it will leave. That it comes in waves. And the thing is that everything comes in waves.
Yes.
And so apocalypse is a wave right now. Having atomic bombs that can blow up the world, that would kind of think you in terms of a apocalypse. And I'm not sure what the attraction is. So I can't really answer that, but I do feel that we've got attraction to, Darwin was attracted to evolution, and Einstein was attracted to relativity, and Oppenheimer was attracted to splitting atoms. And so this is the way, and their attraction isn't any better or worse. It might have more of a reality, but in my world, my attraction to astrology is just as important.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just maybe in the greater scheme of things, the attraction to apocalypse or attraction to anything could just be a distraction from the ultimate truth of what we
Well, there
are,
you
who we
go.
are, and how we experience the world. Really, distraction. It's just
Yeah.
distraction.
What a great answer to your question. Yeah. Like everything, like it's a distraction like everything else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, a while back, I did a lot of meditation, and the core element of it that I got to was is from what I could see that as soon as I fell into duality, all there was creation and distraction, and I could choose either, but both were still.
Well, talk about Zen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was a very zen state. I lived there
You're
for quite a
joining
while.
me now. That's the Zen. Yeah, everything is distraction.
Yay! So, Indra, look, we're getting close to the end of the recording of this episode. So I'm sure that like what I will do is put at the bottom of the episode all the contact details that you provide, so people can come and find you and have readings. It, and talk to you. Is there anything that you'd like to put out there for people to right now that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. I like to give two free offers to any of your listeners. I will send them
Brilliant.
their Vedic astrology chart, uh, and I will make a comment or two, but it's not a reading. It's just a chart. If you want to see what it looks like in Vedic and you can start to explore it, I will give you a cheat sheet so you can understand it a little bit.
Nice.
You need to email me and give me three pieces of information. Well,
Yes.
four. First name, date, time, and place of birth.
Mm.
and it's
Okay.
nice to know where you're living.
Yes.
And the second offer is the Enneagram, which we didn't really go into too far,
Yeah.
but the idea of Enneagram is you figure out your number, which is your story. They're numbered 1 through 9. There's no hierarchy. They also have names, but of course people don't agree on the names. But if you ask for that, I will send you a very simple paragraph test that will begin. You can begin your journey of figuring out your Enneagram number. It's about 5 or 10 minutes to do. And so if you write me for that, I have a website, indrarinzler.com. Tells you about the readings. If you're interested in readings, you can read about me and some of the readings I offer on there. It's all done through email. I don't have a calendar. The reading starts as soon as you write me.
Brilliant. Okay, that's a nice and easy way into connecting with you. And yeah, thank you very much for offering that to all my listeners. And I'm sure that you'll get contact.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. You said that we didn't touch on the Enneagram. Is there anything that you'd like to tell people about that?
Well, so as I said, there are 9 personality stories. One of them's at our core. We're born with it, is the way I look at it. I actually can see where this whole thing started is that I could, when I was in my first Enneagram class, I got the intuition that astrology and Enneagram were connected.
Yeah,
And I
right.
happened to and I happened to find a man who was perhaps the only one in the world who had a system. I found one of 3 people that knew where he was and what he could do, and he taught me his system for how Enneagram and astrology work together. And it was probably, 10 years or
Yeah.
more before I put all that together.
Wow. Okay.
What he gave me in basically 2 weeks plus of
Wow.
study.
Yeah.
And the way they work together is that, and very simply, is that the Enneagram is based on that there are 3 instincts: anger, emotion, and fear. And while we have all 3 of them in us, one of them is at our core. It's our core reaction.
Yeah.
There are 3 reactions to energy coming toward us. There are those that go toward it. They're more extroverted in nature. There are those that pull back from it. They're more introverted in nature. And there are those that live in neutral, an active neutral spot, and they observe before acting. They are
Yes.
neither extroverted nor introverted, but um, they can show aspects of both, but it's not who they are.
Yeah.
3 reactions to energy times 3 core instincts gives us 9 unique energetic Enneagram vibrational signatures. And this
Yes.
is the beginning of an archetype, so that like a 1 happens to be anger inward. And then the 2 is emotion outward. That's the beginning of the archetype. This is very similar in astrology, where you have the fire elements: fire, earth, air, and water, anger, emotion, and fear. I don't see much different. They're can you see what I'm saying? They're kind
Yeah.
of the same, if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
squint your eyes a little bit. And then you have outward, inward, and neutral. In astrology, you have cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Outward, inward,
Yes.
neutral, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. It's the
Yes.
same thing.
Yeah.
One's 9, one's 12.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
I learned to be able to see the Enneagram points that the I mentioned the 1. So the anger, they hold back their anger, so they're not connected to their Mars. Quite often Mars is in 12th house, so because they can't get their anger, they have perfectionist quality, and so their sun is limited because they need things to be perfect. And
Mm,
so this is the beginning that we can see not only what I would tell you from astrology, but I can also explain your Enneagram story from the astrological point of view in order to give you more depth.
excellent. Excellent. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for
Okay.
asking.
Yeah. So, Indra, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast and sharing your knowledge. And yeah, as I said, I'll connect everyone to you through the podcast episode and then in the podcast notes as well. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on.
CJ, very happy to be here, and thanks for having me on. Blessings
Excellent.
and much love to you and everybody out there.
All right. Okay, everyone. So bye for now, and see you all next episode. Well, that was an absolute pleasure having on Indra Rinzler, and as I did mention that I will produce all of his links in the show notes, and yeah, what a breadth of knowledge across Vedic and the Enneagram that he has shared, and some of his tips on life, which sound extremely familiar to me. I mean, we did get to the point where we're both talking in almost like a Zen sort of state of existence, whereas we discard distraction and just be, which I think is a very, very interesting and important insight to hold on to, considering how life is now. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.